chop that wood, carry water, with the sound of one hand clapping. Yeah, the light and men don't know what it is. Every second, every minute, it keeps changing to something different. I'm in the here and now, meditating, and still I'm suffering, but that's my problem. Enlightenment, don't know what it is. Wake up! Everything's an illusion. Nothing is real. Good or bad, baby, you can change it any way you want. You can rearrange it. Enlightenment, don't know what it is. Chop that wood and carry water. What's the sound of one hand clapping? Enlightenment, don't know what it is.
Okay, let's see. Do we have sound now? Yes? No? Maybe? Is the sound okay? Yes? Good? Very good. Well, that was sort of a nice and useless discussion, but it's not what we're here to do this afternoon. What we're here to do this afternoon is actually take a look at the introduction to the workbook of A Course in Miracles. Because, as some of you may know, I am going to attempt to do the lessons with you all starting the first of the year. Now, I got to tell you something. There's no way in the world I really feel like I can make it through this, but I'm going to do my best. And I've decided that along the way, in order to sort of help me to do my best, we're going to have some guests help out with the lessons as well. Because there are people who I feel hear Jesus and the Holy Spirit at least as well as I do, and they've been through the lessons as well. And I think it's always helpful to have someone other. I mean, it's not good to get into the routine in any way or regard. As Jesus says in the Course, routines as such are dangerous because they become gods unto himself. And I don't necessarily feel that I'm the only one that has anything to say about these lessons, although I do think that this might be a nice way for us to focus on doing the lessons and being each other's incentive for doing them from day to day. When I first went through the lessons, probably 18 months to do the whole set of 365 lessons, and it took me at least 3 years. It took me at least 3 years to read through the text one time. And as you'll see, the lessons go hand in hand with the entirety of the text, and that's something that I really wanted to get into today. What I want to get into today is taking a look at what Jesus says in the introduction to the lessons, because one of the things that I've found is that it's very helpful to read what he actually has to say, and very few people who do the lessons actually read the introduction as part of their understanding as to how to do the lessons themselves. Each lesson tells you exactly how it's meant to be done. The introduction gives you an overview as to how and why the entirety of lessons are to be done, and even some of the things that you can expect as you do these lessons. So whenever I hear people who are having trouble with the lessons, one of the things that I always do is refer them back to the actual introduction, because generally speaking, it speaks directly to every single problem you could ever have with any one of the lessons. And I think it's important for people to understand what the author of the Course himself had in mind, and how he knows you well enough to say the things that he says in the introduction to you. Because one of the things that I found about the Course is the way people come to know that Jesus really does know their mind, and their mind particularly, is because he predicts what the ego and how you're going to react to many of the things that he speaks about. And it's not always a pretty picture, but he's not concerned with the prettiness of the picture. He's only concerned with helping you follow the instructions for your fulfillment of these lessons. So I think we should probably take a look at that. So I've been thinking about how we're going to do this, and I think throughout the year, what's going to happen is this. Every day, and whoever's doing the lessons can join us if they want. All they have to do is sign on to become a member of the Facebook page, ACIM, Purposely Joining in True Communication. So anybody who wants to get these commentaries, will be able to join ACIM, Purposefully Joining in True Communication on Facebook, and we'll post them there every day. And we'll post them by whoever I think is going to help me do them. I have a few people in mind, and I think you're going to be surprised at some of the people I have in mind, because they're not people that you would traditionally think of as, to me, as people who it's not the high bright lights of the Course in Miracles community who have written books and have made claims about things. It will be other people who have actually done the workbook, have had experiences, and really do apply these daily. And it's important to me too, and make no doubt about it. One of the reasons why I talked about the uselessness of the discussion that we had before this is because it's like, okay, if I have to look at the idea of Christ takes many forms, Well, that's okay. Christ can take many forms, but you're asked to accept Jesus totally as that form that you utilize right now. So you could say Christ takes many forms and you're willing to accept Christ, but why don't you accept one form of Jesus as the Christ and his teaching as the only teaching that will actually work for you now? That's putting all your eggs in one basket instead of hedging your bets. And that's one of the things that I find necessary, and I think one of the things that Jesus will also discuss. So, I'm gonna take a look. I'm gonna read. I am going to read, and this is from the Sparkly edition of A Course in Miracles, which in fact I do publish and is available. You can either pay for it or you can either get it free. It doesn't matter to me how you get it. It doesn't matter to me whether you pay for it or I send it to you free. The people who pay for it afford me the ability to send out the books that I send out freely. So that's the way this works. So without further ado, I want to read from the Sparkly edition, Part 1. It's the introduction to the workbook of A Course in Miracles. So here we go. Introduction. A theoretical foundation such as the text is necessary as a background to make these exercises meaningful. Yet it is the exercises which will make the goal possible. So right there from the beginning, he's telling you the importance of the text of A Course in Miracles and the ability for the application of the lessons to show you what the text means. The meaning of the text doesn't lie in one's ability to logically and intellectually analyze what it says. The meaning lies in the ability of the individual to apply them and learn the lessons that demonstrate that the thinking, the mind training that is going to be afforded you, and the thought system that comes along with the text is a new way of thinking, okay? It's got nothing to do with grasping it intellectually, although you will grasp it intellectually. And the intellectual grasping of it will be made firm through the application of the principles in the workbook as they demonstrate to you the truth of what Jesus is offering you in the text. So they go hand in hand. Okay. An untrained mind can accomplish nothing. It is the purpose of these exercises to train the mind to think along the lines which the Course sets out. So obviously, the text is a way of thinking about everything. And the training of the mind, what makes firm the teachings in the text, is the applications of the lessons and the experiences that demonstrate to you personally in your life that the thought system that is being presented in the text actually is true and does work in all areas of your life and can be safely generalized.
The luxury,
okay? That's what this is all about.
Of not being here. Performance with a conscience. This is vulnerable.
They do not require more than a few minutes. And it does not matter where or when you do them. Period. They're very simple. They don't require more than a few minutes. And it does not matter where or when you do them. They need no preparation. Okay? You don't have to still your mind. You don't have to do anything other than pick up the book and read the lesson as it's written and apply it as you're asked to apply it. They are numbered running from 1 to 365. The training period is 1 year. Do not undertake more than one exercise a day. Now, that's very simple. That's a very simple instruction. It's the overview for how you will do this day in and day out for 365 days, and why you will do them day in and day out. Okay? Now, here we go. Now we'll get into a little bit more explanation. The purpose of these exercises is to train the mind to a different perception of everything in the world. This, I got to tell you something. The next couple lines to me are very important because I think many people fail to understand what the purpose of the lessons are, why they are written the way they are written, why they are sequential the way they are, and the fact that they're not only devoted to one thing. Listen. The workbook is divided into two sections, dealing with the undoing of what you see now, and the second with the restoration of sight. So it's not merely that you do the first workbook lesson over and over again, nothing I see means anything. There's a point in time when you know nothing you see means anything, and you do begin to be able to see with meaning because your mind has been freed from all the meanings that previously kept you from seeing true perception. So in the first half of the workbook, we're going to undo your perception. In the second half, you're going to be shown how to gain true perception and right-minded thinking based on the thought system that has been offered to you in the text of A Course in Miracles. One of the things that begins to happen is even the egoic mind, which thinks it thinks, becomes to think along the lines of the text, because that is what is being trained. We are training the egoic mind by using its resistance to learn to resist not, so that it can do what it's always done, which is think worldly thoughts, but at least the worldly thoughts that it is thinking are in line with the thought system that Jesus is offering to you in the text. The first half undoes perception. The second half, which I think is really important to understand, is how we gain the new perception, the right-minded perception, the restoration of a true way of thinking about everything, so that even our egoic thinking doesn't have the ability to get in the way of our right-mindedness, our knowing what we're here to do, who we are, and leaving behind the questions, the need for the constant questionings as to who we are, who am I, who is this, what does this mean? No. In the second half, we're gaining, we're being restored to right-minded thinking, because in the first half of the workbook, we undid the perceptions that were not allowing us to think right-mindedly. Okay? It's important to understand that there are two parts. One undoes, and the second realigns you with what truth is. Okay? It is recommended that each exercise be repeated several times a day, preferably in a different place each time, and if possible, in every situation in which you spend any long period of time. Okay? This is what encompasses your day. It is recommended that each exercise be repeated several times a day, preferably in different places, because we're creatures of habit. That's why we need to undo our thinking. We are creatures of habit. From day to day, our habits don't actually change very often. So we find ourselves in similar situations, in similar places, and we're being told that there's nothing wrong with that. And we can equally utilize the lessons in each of those situations because each lesson generalizes to all situations. The purpose is to train the mind to generalize the lessons so that you will understand that each of them is as applicable to one situation as it is to another. Okay? Each lesson is as applicable to the situation you're in now as it will be to the situation you're in 20 minutes from now, as it was to the situation you were in last week. Okay? Unless, now this is another one. This is also one of the reasons why I can tell that people seldom read this introduction is because when I sit with people who do the lessons, they do the exact opposite of what this is going to ask them to do. Okay? Unless specified to the contrary, the exercises should be practiced with the eyes open, since the aim is to learn to see. They're not meditative exercises. You don't go into a meditation and meditate yourself out. You're looking at the world that we seem to be participating in with open eyes and applying the lesson that you're being given to do to the things that you're actually seeing. And as your mind comes together with the lesson, the instant that the lesson is made apparent, the vision or what you are seeing begins to look differently to you. That may not be the case every time you do it. That's going to be addressed in the next couple paragraphs, okay? Unless specified to the contrary, the exercises should be practiced with the eyes open, since the aim is to learn how to see. The only rule that should be followed throughout is to practice the exercises with great specificity. Great specificity. The only rule is to apply these lessons in great specificity. You actually name the situation that you think you're in, that you're looking at, and utilize the lesson in the moment that you're in the situation that you're looking at. Okay? Each one applies to every situation in which you find yourself and to everything you see in it. Okay? Now, one of the reasons why when we start the lessons out, they're only calling for you to do this for a minute, 2 or 3 times a day, is because there is the acceptance that your mind is not trained, and this is the period of time that you've committed and dedicated yourself to training it. Obviously, Jesus and yourself should not be expecting perfection in day 1, nor is Jesus, and especially yourself, should be judging you. Jesus is not judging how you do these lessons, nor should you judge yourself, especially since it is a course in undoing judgment. So judging yourself as to how you're doing them, whether you're doing good or you're doing poorly, is the exact opposite of the purpose of the lesson. It is to undo the mind that thinks that way, that thinks there's a proper and an improper, a poor way to do them and a good way to do them, a judgment as to how I did my lesson today or how I should have done my lesson today. That is what you need not do, for there is no one doing that to you but you, but If you find yourself doing that, then, albeit, include that in the situation to which you apply today's lesson. Is that understandable? Don't run down the road of judgment. Simply see that you're judging yourself and apply the lesson for today to the situation that you find yourself in, wherein which you see yourself judging you as to how to do lessons to free yourself from judgment. Does that make any sense? Okay. Everyone applies to every situation in which you find yourself and to everything you see in it. Each day's exercises are planned around one central idea. The exercises themselves consisting of applying that idea many specifics as possible. Okay, notice he says to as many as possible, not to each and every single one. To as many as possible. How many are possible? That's entirely up to you and how you're going about doing these lessons. That's where comparison is the root of all evil, and certainly not the way to do these lessons. How you do these lessons is how you do these lessons. You're not meant to compare how you're doing them to how someone else is doing them, or how many specifics did you apply them to today versus how many specifics I applied them to today. This is an individual process of undoing your particular perceptions so as for you to gain a new way of thinking, a new way of seeing, and therefore a new way of being in the world that is no longer of the world. You will be in the world, but you will no longer be of the world, because the thinking that you're using is thinking that operates parallel to the divine mind of our creators and our brothers who have always been Christ and never left the kingdom themselves. Okay? So let's continue. Be sure that you do not decide that there are some things you see to which the idea for today is inapplicable. Okay? Be sure that you do not decide that there are some things you see to which the idea for today is not applicable. Now, if you find yourself thinking, oh wow, this situation is not applicable and the lesson would not work, that's when you apply the lesson to the situation you're finding yourself in, so that you don't exclude and you begin to learn the process of inclusion, which leads to generalization. The aim of the exercises will always be to increase the application of the idea to everything. The aim of the exercises is always to increase the application of the idea to everything. Here you go. This will not require effort. Only be sure that you make no exceptions in the applying. Okay. Now, one of the things I would say about that is this. We all have been living in the world of space and time. We've all had jobs. We've all had things we've done. We know what applying effort is. We all understand what it is to take on a new job and begin to apply effort of the way to which we're supposed to approach these lessons. They will not require effort. Only be sure that you make no exception in the applying of the ideas, because you're freeing yourself from the old way of thinking and therefore the old way of being. Ultimately, they do not require effort because all things happen by the grace of God, and the grace of God is what effortlessness is. And if we're learning of a new way of thinking, if we're learning of the divine mind that we are all one with, and that which we can use to begin to see and know even here, then it's actually freeing us from our old way of thinking, which required effort, toil, as it says in the Bible after Adam and Eve fell from the grace of God in their experience of themselves. Life became effort. Before that, life was by the grace of God. We're freeing ourselves from the old way of thinking and being and entering into a new way, which is life by the acceptance of the freely given grace of God, because we are no longer bound to ideas that tell us there is something different. Okay? Now, this last paragraph, I think, is probably the most important thing to read, and I would say personally, it's something that for the first month or so, it may be good to read it before you do each and one of the lessons. Until you internalize this last paragraph, it may be something you want to look at prior to doing the lessons each and every day. Listen to what it's going to say, because it's going to address, if anybody's done the lessons before, if anybody has tried to do these lessons before, if any has been through them and remember the first time they were through them, think of all the questions you had in your mind. Now, this one paragraph is going to deal with all the questions in your mind.
Of not
And I feel
performance with conscience.
that maybe you would consider reading
Innovating for you.
prior to doing the lessons each day for however long it takes. Here it is. Some of the ideas you will find hard to believe, and others will seem quite startling. Okay? So some of the ideas you're going to find hard to believe. One of the ideas that people were finding hard to believe before is that Jesus is the only completely true witness for God. That idea may be hard to believe, especially in the light of what we thought we've learned in the past about other people who we consider the Christ. Okay? Some of these ideas you're going to find hard to believe, and others are going to be quite startling. It does not matter. You are merely asked to apply them to what you see. So if that idea comes up where you begin to question Jesus as the only true, complete witness to God, that's the situation within which you're meant to apply the lesson and the new way of thinking too. Does that make sense? Some of the ideas you will find hard to believe, and others will seem quite startling. It does not matter. You are merely asked to apply them to what you see. You are not asked to judge them, nor even believe them. Now, that should get rid of a lot of the fear, the doubt, and the anxiety that anyone has about doing these lessons. Because you're not being asked to believe them, you're not being asked to judge them, you're not even being asked if they're easy to accept, you're just being asked to apply them, to use them. You are not asked to judge them, nor even believe them. You are only asked to use them. It is their use which will give them meaning to you and show you they are true. It's not the discussion of them. It's not the study of them. It's not saying them over and over to yourself. It's not quoting them to other people. It's not using them to justify your thought. It's the utilization of the lesson in the situations that you find yourself. It's in the application wherein which the meaning becomes known to you, true to you, and acceptable. No discussion is going to be helpful unless you apply the lesson to the discussion you find yourself in. No thoughts of comparison based on anything in the past are going to be useful or helpful unless you apply the lesson that you're utilizing for the day to see them. Get it? You are asked only to use them. It is the use, not the discussion, not the comparison, not the reading through Scripture where it's said similarly in some of the books. None of that has any efficacy because it's all the way the old thoughts and continues to stay formulated in your mind. It is their use which will give them meaning to you and show you they are true. The use gives you the meaning, not the comparison, not the spiritualization of them, not the use of them as affirmations, not the saying of them over and over again. It's the use in the situations you find yourself in. Remember only this: you need not believe them, you need not accept them, and you need not welcome them. I know that most people don't welcome the idea that Jesus is the only completely true witness for God that there is. Nobody is asking you to welcome them. I'm only going to ask you to apply the lesson that you're utilizing on how you're thinking about that. Remember only this: you need not believe them, you need not accept them, and you need not welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter, nor decrease their efficacy. Now, one of the reasons why I find this paragraph so important is because he knows already how you're going to respond to the lessons that he's about to offer you to do each and every day. If you can see that, you can see that there's no judgment by the author or by the Christ in how you do it. He already knows you. He knows you're going to come up against lessons that you don't understand, you don't believe, and you're actively resisting. None of that matters. If it doesn't matter to the author, why should it matter to you? He's telling you it does not matter. Just simply use the lesson. Nothing is going to come of discussing these things in comparison between two people unless they are actively utilized in the midst of that discussion by the minds that are making the points that they're attempting to make based on the quotes that they're trying to quote. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter, nor decrease their efficacy. Now, that's a big one, because I find when people do these lessons and they begin to judge whether the lesson is working or not, they tend to err on the side of their own thinking, of their own egoic judgment of themselves that it is not working, and give up before anything actually true can happen. Oh, this isn't working, I don't feel any different. I don't care. The author doesn't care. He's not concerned about that. Why are you so concerned about that? Just simply do the lesson. Notice how you're thinking about the situation you're finding yourself in and apply the day's lessons to your thinking of that situation. None of this will decrease the efficacy. So what he's saying to you is how you feel they are operating you, whether you think they are operating in you, whether you think they are changing your mind or not, is not important, and it has nothing to do with the efficacy of the lessons in the long run. And I think that's important for people to remember, because people inherently here are judgmental, and judgmentalism allows you to come down on one side or the other, but because you always get the result of the judgment, no matter what side it's on, it's you that feels bad about yourself, and it's you that winds up wanting to give up for no good reason, according to everything you've just read, if you've read this before you do the lessons. None of this will matter, nor decrease their efficacy. But allow yourself to make no exceptions in applying the ideas the exercises contain. Whatever your reaction to the ideas may be, use them. Nothing more than this is required. So some of the ideas you're going to find very hard to believe. Others are going to be quite startling. It doesn't matter. You're merely asked to apply them to what you see. You're not asked to judge them, nor even believe them. You're only asked to use them. It is their use which will give the meaning to you and show you they are true. Remember only this: you need not believe them, you need not accept them, and you need not welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter, nor decrease their efficacy. But allow yourself to make no exception in applying the ideas the exercises contain. Whatever your reactions to the ideas may be, use them. Nothing more than this is required. So basically, prior to us starting the lessons on the first of the year, I want everybody to become acquainted with this introduction.
I want to help her get back on her feet.
Because I think it will take the worry out of doing the lessons and the need to continually judge yourself and your success in what it is you're endeavoring to do and fulfilling the goal.
IFAW.
The fulfillment of the goal comes with the utilization of each and every one of the 365 lessons for the purpose that is contained in each one of the lessons, and the cumulative effect that comes about 365 days after you begin them. Until that time, it would be as if you went to a movie, thought you knew what the ending was the movie was in the middle of the movie, and left the movie and went out and talked about the ending that you thought happened. Meanwhile, everybody else who watched the movie has an entirely different ending in mind, simply because they sat it out. That's all that's being asked. So that's what I wanted to discuss today. Now, how you guys spend the rest of the time makes little difference to me here. I think somehow I'm going to learn how to make videos, and we'll post one a day, as I said, in ACIM, Purposefully Joining in True Communication. And I think the other thing that we might do is possibly at least once a month, maybe more, we'll just all get back together in here, and we'll see what's happening for everybody. Okay? So, if anybody you know is interested, we'll send out invitations, and you can invite your friends. They'll have to join Facebook in order to see them, unless you know how to mail them or email to them. And that's how we're going to approach this. So on the 1st of January, if I can figure out how to do this the right way, we will post a little sort of, I don't know, tidbit about the first lesson and how I did it that day. All right? So that, as far as I'm concerned, is what we're here for today. And with that, I'm going to play a couple of songs.
I want to say to my sisters and my brothers, keep the faith. When the storm flies and the wind blows, go on at a steady pace. When the battle is fought and the victory's won, we can all shout together, we have overcome. We'll talk to the Father and the Son when we make it to the promised land. Walk together, little children. We don't ever have to worry. Through this world of trouble, we gotta love one another. Let us take a fellow man by the hand, try to help him to understand. We can all be together forever and ever when we make it to the promised land. Our Bible reads, thou shalt not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day, no, for the pestilence that walketh in the darkness, no, for the destruction that waiteth in the noonday hour. Walk together, little children. We don't ever have to worry. Through this world of trouble, we gotta love one another. Let us take our fellow man by the hand, try to help him to understand. We can all be together forever and ever if we make it to the promised land. Children, we can make it to the promised land.